Hi, my name is DM Barr. I am the author of such psychological thrillers as Expired Listings, Slashing Mona Lisa, and the upcoming domestic suspense novel, Saving Grace, which is now on pre-order at Amazon. I am joined today by Sung Jae Woo, who has put out a mystery novel, his first genre, because everything else he's written has been literary fiction. And it features a Korean American adoptee who is an investigator. And he speaks about what inspired him to write a novel like that. And we get into a little bit about how Korea is coming into its own in American culture. I hope you'll join me and sit back, relax, enjoy. And as always, please stay safe. Welcome to another edition of Author Groupie. I'm here with Sung Jae Woo, whose short stories and essays have appeared in the New York Times, PEN, Guernica, and Vox. He has written 3 novels, Skin Deep, which comes out this year, Love, Love, which came out in 2015, and Everything Asian, which was published in 2009 and won the 2010 Asian Pacific American Librarians Association Literature Award Youth category. In 2014, Everything Asian was chosen for Coming Together in Skokie and Niles Township. He's a graduate of Cornell with an MFA from New York University, which is wonderful credentials, and he lives in New Jersey. So welcome to Author Groupie.
Thank you very much for having me.
A pleasure. What can you tell us about the new book, Skin Deep?
Skin Deep is my first mystery novel. It is a genuine mystery novel, as in it's very much a genre work. It has a private eye. Her name is Siobhan O'Brien, and she is special because she is a Korean adoptee, as in she was adopted by an Irish father and a Norwegian mother, that's her background, and which people find interesting, since her name and her face don't immediately match up, and it ends up having some interesting scenes in the book for that reason. It is just like a plain old regular mystery. This is a missing persons case, and Siobhan has to help out an old friend whose daughter is missing. The daughter, her name is Penny, and she is a freshman at a college, Llewellyn College in upstate New York, and she's disappeared, and the friend needs Siobhan's help to try to find her.
Very interesting. So let me ask, so you have these 3 books. Do the 3 books differ other than one genre and the others are not, or is there a theme that runs through them all?
I would say if there is a theme that runs through them all, it is some Korean person is involved in some way. My first novel, Everything Asian, was more in that regard because it's an autobiographical book. And in that one, almost the entire cast is Korean, since it's based on my life. The second novel, Love, Love, is more, it's a little bit bigger, but it also features a Korean brother and sister duo, and they're the star of the book. And this one has Siobhan. So yeah, that would be the common theme. The first 2 novels, though, are, you write something and you don't necessarily have any right in determining how the book is received. I never thought for a second that my first novel, Everything Asian, it could be considered like young adult, but it was. In bookstores, it was often shelved with the other young adult novels. It features a 12-year-old narrator, half the book is written that way. So I figure maybe that's why it could be slotted that way. Then the second novel was much more adult in both in the style and subject matter. So those two I consider to be literary works, kind of like, no genre really. Skin Deep, on the other hand, is very much in the tradition of detective novels.
What made you decide that you wanted to go the genre?
This is something I'm almost embarrassed to say that I started back in 1993, this book, so it goes way, way back. I wrote the first chapter of it, and actually I wrote quite a bit of it. I think a good 5 or 6 chapters for my, this was my senior year at Cornell. I was there was this writing workshop called Seminar in Writing, and even though it was split into 2 semesters, fall and spring, it was really seen as one single class, one single entity. And even though you had 2 different instructors, the purpose and the thrust of the class was to do some prolonged work, whether it be a collection of short stories or maybe even a novel. So that's when I kind of got the idea of, well, maybe this is the project that I will embark upon. I will go write this novel, then get very far writing the novel. Senior year in college, as you can imagine, was very distracting in many ways. But I did start it. And even though what ultimately ended up being Skin Deep is not what I intended to be back in 1993, quite a bit of it did survive. It was always supposed to be set at a women's college, and it is. Although in Skin Deep, it's no longer a women's college. They just switched over into co-ed. But it's the same school. And there was always a very rich villain. Somebody, I think in the 93 version, his name was Mr. Chow. So I guess he was Chinese in this one, and Skin Deep is Korean. Yeah.
What made you come back to it?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I don't know what made me come back to it. It's always something that's been percolating in the back of my mind for sure. I've always loved mystery novels for a long, long time. I used to read quite a few of them, especially when I was in high school and some in college too. Dick Francis's horse racing novels were one of my favorites, and so was the Robert B. Parker series. But like all the other, major, like Elmore Leonard, I couldn't get enough of. And yes, he's not exactly a mystery writer, but he's in the same kind of area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's fair to say that you have a monopoly on mystery novels that feature Korean American adoptees as the private detective. What made you choose that protagonist?
It was back in 2009 when I was on a book tour for my first book, and I went out to San Francisco. And at a reading, I met like a group of Korean American adoptees of San Francisco, and I knew that there were certainly people who were adopted, but it never really occurred to me that, like, I don't know, that there's this wonderful group of people who would support each other, and I met with them, I talked to them, and they were very happy with the book, and I never really forgot about them. So even my second book, Love, actually has to do with adoption. But this Skin Deep is the one that actually features a transracial adoptee, just like the wonderful people that I met in San Francisco. it's just rife with drama right from the beginning, right? When you have a character who is conflicted in many ways. She grows up with people who don't look like her, and it's a learning experience for her, and it's just that was very attractive to me, to have somebody who is already in some kind of internal conflict. It's not something that at the same time that really that I kind of linger on. This is just who she is. This is Siobhan. It does not hold her back. It defines her, certainly, but it's just like anything else. It's like your shoe size or the size of your shirt. It's just who she is, and I like that about her.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. I have to tell you, and this is a question that might have more to do with me than you, but it seems to me, and maybe it's because in my house, it's a very Korean-friendly house. My husband is like the world's biggest fan of Korean indie pop music, like Mamamoo and Jarum, and I know who, what is his name, Primary is, who is a rapper. Wow. I know these things. I can't believe I know them, but I know them. And we were big fans of Kim's Convenience. And of course, we, like everyone else, love Parasite. So would you say, maybe it's just me because I'm surrounded by all this, but do you think that Korean, all things Korean, is coming into its own in American culture?
It certainly feels that way. You're absolutely right. K-pop has been huge for a while, but it seems like with BTS, it has just absolutely exploded, and it has really entered the American mainstream. And yeah, we were, both my wife and I were screaming in surprise and delight when Parasite won Best Picture last year. It was I never thought for a second the movie had any chance of winning that, because it's such a weird movie. It's a great movie. Oh,
it's so great. I love that movie.
Me too, yeah. Yeah, it does seem like there is a cultural awakening happening, all things Korean, which I think that's great, obviously, because I'm Korean, but it's just, Koreans always feel a little bit like the little brother, since Japan is, there's a lot of history with Japan and Korea that goes way back. There's some unpleasant and all that, but even discounting all that, all the occupation and all of that, Japan is just, it's a much bigger country than Korea, much more powerful, and culturally, there's so much more of Japan here than Korea. And you can say the same thing for China, of course, for better or for worse.
And yet Korea has made it onto 90 Day Fiancé.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh, that is too funny.
So I'm glad to hear it's not just me, and my husband will be thrilled that it's not just him. I'm going to get back to your book. You used two main locales for the book, Llewellyn College, which you mentioned before, and the Krishna Yoga Center. Why did you decide to set the book in those places, and are they real places?
They are, yeah. They're vaguely veiled. Llewellyn College is based on Wells College in Aurora, New York, which is about 45 minutes northwest of Cornell. And I had some good friends there. I even took a class there. There is an exchange program between Cornell and Wells, and by and large, I think the flow of students goes from Wells to Cornell, and not too many go from Cornell to Wells, but I was one of the few that did. My junior year, the fall of my junior year, I took a poetry class at Wells, and it was, I loved it, because at that point, Wells was an all-women's college, so I was one of the very, very few male students there. I think there were only two others. They were the kids of professors who were allowed to go there. But yeah, so I had some good friends there, and it's just, it's a tiny college compared to Cornell, which has like 26,000 students, which is just crazy. It's a city unto itself.
Yeah.
Wells at one point, I think, had like 400 students in its entire body. So that's,
Wow.
it's smaller than my high school. So it was a vastly more secluded experience, but I loved it. So I definitely wanted to put Wells in there, and the other Krishna Center for Yoga is based on Kripalu, which is a wonderful yoga retreat center in the Berkshires. It's in Lenox, Massachusetts. And yeah, I changed the names because I don't know, legal purposes, I suppose, because some unsavory things happen in both places, and I don't want anybody to sue me saying that these things actually happened. Also, Cornell is in there too. I reversed it, and it's called Lenrock. If you spell Cornell backwards, that's what it actually spells. And there's a fraternity actually that's called Lenrock at Cornell, so this is a known quantity there.
So do you think when COVID is over, you'll do readings at Wells and at the yoga center?
I guess it's possible. I don't know. Probably not at the yoga center, because worse things happen there than at Wells. But yeah. I never thought I would be invited there. I have read at Wells a couple times actually for my other two books, so they were super kind to me. Yeah.
Nice. Well, as a man, was it difficult to write from a first-person voice of a woman?
This might be surprising to hear, but I've actually written more from the point of view of women than men in all of my writing, which is kind of strange. But maybe not really, because I grew up with my mother and my two older sisters. So I was informed by them my whole young life. I didn't meet my father until we came here in 81 when I was 10 years old. So no real male influence at the early onset of my years. I've always just gotten along better with women than men in general. Yeah, the only time I think I actually had any kind of a mass male influence was I was actually part of a fraternity at Cornell, but not in any way, shape, or form of a fraternity that you might imagine. It was not Animal House by any stretch. We're a whole bunch of very nice geeky kids. Yeah, I just find it, I mean, at the core of it, we're not all that different. We're all just people, and the funnest part of writing is imagining you as somebody else, and it's I don't think it's that big of a stretch, at least not for me.
Perfect. Well, all signs point to this being the start of a series. Are you working on a second book?
I just started writing the actual words to the next book last weekend, and I'm like a chapter and a half in, but that doesn't mean much. This Skin Deep, I think, has like 85 chapters, 83, 85
Wow.
chapters, and it's only like, 328 pages, so a chapter and a half is not much.
So you write 2 and 3 page chapters.
When I actually finished the first draft of this book, there were 30 chapters, so it was normal sized, I thought. But then I just thought, well, maybe I should just break this up, and then I thought maybe I should break it up even more. And then I thought of, I think, what's his name? James Patterson, if you ever read any of his books. Like,
Yes,
he
he's
writes like,
known for it.
yeah, 1 or 2 page chapters. And I remember when I read one of those Alex Cross novels, I was like, you feel like you're really accomplishing something. You just keep going from chapter to chapter. It's like, whoa, I read like 20 chapters in like 2 hours. So yeah.
Well, he was in advertising, so he knows what he's doing.
Yes. He is one smart guy.
Well, I'd love to hear some if you'd like to read a few pages from Skin Deep.
Absolutely. Why don't I start from the beginning?
Great.
And I'll just read like a couple chapters, which won't be much.
That's it. Okay.
Okay, here it goes. 1. My assignment this morning was Dr. Henry Michelson was getting out of his white BMW with a box of donuts and 2 cups of coffee in a paper tray. Treats for his girlfriend and son. He walked across the courtyard of the apartment complex with a faint smile. Crouched behind a prickly bush, I trained my 300mm zoom on his unsuspecting face. Click, click. Taking photographs of people in secret is capturing a kind of innocence, which is ironic because more often than not, images serve as a confirmation of guilt. As Michelson disappeared through the building's entrance, I caught a whiff of eggs and bacon. My stomach growled. Surveillance makes the tummy grow fonder, for food, that is. I slipped the camera into my backpack and made my way to the shiny diner on the corner. Autumn chill had firmly descended here in upstate New York. The time of year when I feel like I'm either wearing too many layers or not enough. There's no in between. Today I was a wool scarf away from being comfortable. On the weekends he had his son. Michelson wasn't supposed to have overnight female company, yet here he was thinking he was being smart by hiding out at his girlfriend's apartment instead. Michelson might lose custody of his boy, and I felt bad about that. In the 3 days Ed and I had been casing him, he took good care of his son, taking him to the movies, the park, the mall. But he wasn't paying us. His pissed-off ex-wife was. A bell on a string rang when I opened the door of the Tick-Tock diner. A rush of warm air and the buzz of eaters greeted me. I passed by this place a few times since their grand opening last month, but hadn't had the occasion to stop in. Didn't look all that different from its former incarnation, Time to Eat diner. Like before, a gigantic round clock behind the counter grinned at me with oversized googly eyes. The new owner didn't want to spend money to redecorate, so they just kept the same temporal theme. Just you, miss? The host asked. He was fat and jolly and was wearing a pretty obvious hairpiece that made his head resemble a Brazilian nut. Just me, I said. He led me to a cozy 2-seater booth by the windows. The faux leather upholstery was cracked along the edges and taped at one corner with black duct tape, but it was still cushy and comfortable. Coffee, 2 eggs over easy, rye toast, home fries. If I could eat breakfast every meal, I would. I cleaned my plate before the waitress had a chance to refill my cup. Hungry, were we? She said. Very, I said, and handed her my credit card. She took it and was about to step away, but stopped. CEO Han? She asked, reading my name off the card. It's what it looks like, but actually sounds like Siobhan. It's Irish. Like your last name, O'Brien, the waitress said. You're Irish? Why wouldn't I be? I asked. The waitress laughed. I'll be back with your receipt, Lassie. Chapter 2. Nestled in a valley between the Catskill Mountains, the city of Athena is a picture of fall perfection from the second week in October until Election Day. Some people prefer the flowers of spring, full of promise and warmth, but I've always been attracted to the quiet fires of fall, the final burst of color before winter. On Buffalo Street, a bearded crooner busked by the water fountain. I threw $5 into his guitar case and clapped when he finished his song about getting stung by a bee. Bee, why? At the end of the block, I entered a white brick building and rode the elevator to the third floor. I was already excited for my plan to come in later in the week and surprise my boss Ed with a fresh coat of paint on the door of our office. Ed was not a fan of surprises, but I figured this was not a bad one, since I didn't plan on changing the color or anything. It was a heavy wooden door with a large, translucent square window. The name of the firm stenciled on the glass, Ed Baker Investigative Agency. The door was painted black with dark gold trim, a reassuring combination of professionalism and class. Friday was my second anniversary. Ed probably didn't even remember or care if he did, but I wanted to express my gratitude. Instead of hiring someone with more experience, any truth be told, he had taken a chance on me, a laid-off newspaper reporter who wrote restaurant and movie reviews and occasional human interest pieces, neither Woodward nor Bernstein. Our office wasn't much, a Keurig sitting on a wide filing cabinet in the back and 3 desks, one for Ed, one for me, and one for Stacy, our part-time bookkeeper. Ed had the biggest one, with 2 wooden armchairs in front of it for clients. Behind him was the only window, and he often stared out at the city below and the verdant landscape beyond when he thought of through a case. I placed my purse on my desk. "Good with Michelson," I said, removing my jacket. "Got the photos." Ed's chair was, as usual, facing the window, and his head was tilted in an angle that suggested he had nodded off. "Ed?" I walked over to his desk. Slumped in his chair, he clenched his left arm with his right hand. I placed my fingers on his wrist. I already knew I wouldn't feel a pulse. His skin was cold. The expression that remained frozen on his face was somewhere between a grimace and a smile. But only for the next 36 hours. Everyone knows about rigor mortis, but few realize that the body goes slack a day or so later. The way Ed had grabbed his arm suggested a heart attack. He was on medication for high blood pressure and for type 2 diabetes, too. He was not the healthiest person I knew. A few crumbs of his half-eaten glazed donut were embedded in his mustache, so I brushed them off. Now that my assessment of the scene was complete, I stood next to him with my hand on his shoulder. I saw what he saw, the bronze beauty of the mountains in the distance, and I wept.
That was beautiful. I really like the style. Is very accessible with short sentences. It's really great. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Thank you so much.
So tell everyone when it's coming out. I know it's available for pre-order now, but when is the release?
The official pub date is July 21st, Tuesday. So I guess
2 weeks.
2 weeks. You're right. 2 days.
Yeah.
2 weeks exactly. Yeah.
So everyone, it's on pre-order now. It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual suspects.
And it's being released by Agora, right? Which is part of Polis.
Agora, an imprint of Polis books. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great publisher. I'm sure that we're going to see, great things from you. I'm looking forward to reading this. Thank you so much for joining me today. And please stay safe.
Thank you so much, Dawn. You too.
Thank you.